This is a Blaze Radio production.
We're covering who's on deck,
hitting the ice on the hockey scene,
and hosting a racing roundtable.
This is sports.
This is news.
This is everything you need to know about the future.
This is the Scountin Session. Hello, everyone. We welcome you back to the Scoutin Session for a new semester, where we bring you up to speed with the rising stars, featuring standout performances from young athletes at the professional level and stars of tomorrow. Thank you all for joining us this Monday. My name is Jordan Talley, and as always, I am joined by
Ella Walter-Sanchez
and Noah Reed.
All right, big weekend for ASU athletics even this weekend. How was everyone's weekend?
It was pretty good. It was nice to actually have a super nice weather game. I was terrified that the game was not going to happen. All day I was at work and I was checking my phone waiting for updates. Like when the walkout didn't happen, I was like, okay, the game's not going to happen. And I saw like all this flooding, and especially as, you know, all of us having to go from downtown and drive to the game, I was terrified that I wasn't going to be able to physically make it because, you know, at least like the field could be clean, but the surrounding roads were not. So I was a little concerned, but it was great. We were just talking about I left at half, but it was great to watch the rest of it at home, and it was an amazing game. Again, a little too close for my comfort.
Yes.
That first half, at least watching it in person, was very, very, very embarrassing at a lot of moments. I knew that, especially compared to the other games, like severity wise, that this one was like on paper supposed to be more tough. I know we've had struggles with all of our games in general, regardless of the team's strength or not, and I knew that this one, you know, ranked opponent was going to be a little more tough. But again, it was kind of just like lots of sloppiness and lots of just like, are we kidding? But a lots of great plays still, nonetheless. Lots of amazing plays by Levitt. There was that one play where he literally like dodged people like 50 different times and like spun off of the ground, and I was like, wow, he's amazing. But it was great to see them win again, not to just sit here and bash on them, but it was great to watch that and have a nice relaxing weekend. What about you guys?
I finally got to go to a football game, guys.
Yay!
First one of the year, and I was just... You know, I sat there, I got out of my apartment because I had stayed inside pretty much all day, and I just watched the rain obliterate my window. And I'm thinking to myself, here I am, must be the luckiest guy in the world to have missed the first two home games, and it was decent weather both games, good results for ASU, and here we go into this ranked matchup, and it is pouring rain, and I was thinking to myself, man, this is going to be rough. But the skies opened up on the way over. You could see a blue sky on the horizon. The sunset was gorgeous. I know Ella was telling us earlier that she was a little chilly. The Arizonan in her couldn't take it.
I get cold at 70 degrees. Okay.
But Jordan and I, like, this is the weather.
That was good football weather for me. It was like almost 70. It was like 68 degrees out. It wasn't hot. It wasn't raining. I was so scared we were gonna get there and it was gonna rain again, because we were like, what are the odds of this being like delayed hours? Yeah. And so we didn't leave. And not only that, there was no Waymos running. The light rail wasn't running because of all the flooding on the road and everything.
Oh, the light rail wasn't? Okay, so I'm glad I didn't try taking the light rail, because we ended up Ubering. That's how we got there, because I have a couple of friends who are CAs, and so we were waiting. They had a CA meeting that ended at 4:30, and so we were like thinking, oh, we're not going to even get good seats. But because they didn't let anybody in, it was actually ended up being perfect for us.
I got off of work at 4:30 too, and I was like dashing over to my apartment to try to get over. But yeah, no,
we didn't leave until 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So and then we got there literally perfect timing for Sparky to stomp the bus. Like we got to our seats pretty decent too. And then literally 5 minutes later, the like pregame video rolled, and I'm like, yes. But I would also just like to say, all 3 out of the games this season for ASU has been one possession games when they should not have been. And not to toot my own horn or anything, but I was on Blaze game day last week, and my prediction was exactly what happened.
Really?
Yes. I said it's going to come down. It's going to be super close, and it's going to come down to like a walk-off field goal, just like Baylor. Not only did it come to a walk-off field goal, it was the same exact score as Baylor. So
that's amazing. I would feel so proud of myself.
I know. I just had to. You know.
No, good stuff, Jordan. This is good. This is the kind of
shout.
content we need right here. Like,
that's amazing.
We
It's
have our
just-
predictor.
It's just so frustrating because last year, like, it was fun. Like, okay, we're the underdogs. Like, every game is close because, you know, we're the underdogs. This is such a crazy, like, momentous season. But this season, when we went into it, like, okay, this is such an easy schedule. Like, obviously, it's not going to be, like, a piece of cake. And, like, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, okay, this is easier. Like, it's just going to be scary once we get to the playoffs. And I feel like it just has not been what I expected.
Too close to comfort, for sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of room for growth, and I think these next 2 weeks with the break are going to be really big. And I don't know if you guys saw, they did announce we are prime time, 7:15 people, MST. If you're in Arizona, the game is going down 7:15.
Is that Cincinnati or who?
That's going to be Utah State.
Oh,
so
okay.
that's going to be a good game.
Yeah.
Excited for that one.
I'm really nervous for Iowa though because we're playing them in Iowa in winter.
I did the
essentially.
math. I'm predicting we end the year 9-3 if I were to
Okay.
guess. Like if I'm
is a
looking
good
at
point,
and
too.
if I'm looking at ASU as a whole, I feel like the team is going to go 9-3 because you lose. I'm guessing you lose Texas Tech, you lose Iowa, and then I think Arizona, West Virginia,
Those should all
and
be
Utah
locks.
are all wins. So, anyways,
All right.
Yeah.
Enough football talk. Let's get into it. Little change of order today. I'll be starting out today with Hit the Ice. And this week on the Scountin Session, I have chosen Jack Beck, 22-year-old winger out of Richmond Hill, Ontario, Canada. And fans of ASU hockey already know this name because he is the brother of recent ASU alum and defenseman Noah Beck, who graduated last year, who was extremely essential to that team. Just one of those big-bodied guys that wasn't afraid to get rough with it. He was very physical defenseman, 6'3", so bigger guy on that blue line. But yeah, so Jack Beck, and his story is very interesting because he actually does come from a professional hockey background, which we're not used to seeing in the NCAA until recently. So last year, Beck played in 2 professional hockey leagues, the AHL and the CECHL, pardon me. And basically what those is, I know we talk about a lot about like AA MLB affiliates.
Yeah.
The AHL is the direct affiliate for the NHL. I almost said NFL. So the AHL is like the step down from the NHL, and then the ECHL is the step down from the AHL. So it's essentially, the ECHL is essentially the farm team for the AHL, which is a farm team for the NHL, if that makes any sense. So Beck, he played 4 games with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins of the AHL, so the AHL affiliate of the Pittsburgh Penguins, where he played, he had 3 points in 4 games with 1 goal and 2 assists, where then he was sent back down to the ECHL, where he was a points per game player, logging 8 goals and 28 assists in 36 games played. Before his professional stint, Beck played 5 seasons in the OHL of the CHL, which we're very familiar with. So once again, for a refresher, OHL is a subdivision of the Canadian Hockey League, and they play with the WHL as well. So the Ontario Hockey League, where he played for the Ottawa 67s and the Sault Greyhounds. In his last season in the major juniors, it was deemed to be his most successful because in 67 games played, he logged 85 points, 27 goals, and 58 assists. I knew this was going to happen.
My bad.
I knew this was going to happen.
hey, I just want to say that I kept my composure and then Ella ruined it. So
I
if
knew- I was
anyone's in
literally-
here, it's Ella.
I was literally
Do it.
I was sitting there, I was talking to one of my friends, and he's like, "Are you gonna open up and say that Ottawa 6-7?" No. Anyways, fast forward to now. What makes this so newsworthy is he was recently announced that Jack Beck is committed to play for the Arizona State Sun Devil hockey team for the 2025-2026 hockey season. Quote from head coach Greg Powers, Beck is a Sun Devil. He comes from an unbelievably family, and we know high of character that he has and makes our team instantly better just by being in our room. The icing on the cake is he is one hell of a player, and he's really going to help us on the ice and throughout our second season in the NCHC. So I thought this was pretty cool. Noah Beck graduated last year. So kind of cool to see that Beck lineage live on in the Valley, because he was so essential to ASU last season. Like, genuinely, like, he had 33 points in 37 games, and Noah did last season. So
I did?
Noah did, yes. So, I mean, it's really cool to see that. The thing that I thought was really interesting, and why I brought this up, is because we've talked so much about the WHL and how they're now allowed to play in the NCAA because of NIL and all that stuff, that they are letting actual professionals play in the NCAA. Like, the AHL, you have to have a contract to be in the AHL. And I don't know why I forgot to mention this, but he was drafted in 2021 to the Calgary Flames. He since then waived his rights and is now a free agent, but you have to have a contract to play in the AHL and the ECHL. So he is actually a professional hockey player coming to play in the NCAA, which I thought was super interesting considering how strict they were with CHL and major junior players.
So we're talking Big 12 Player of the Week.
I don't know. I guess we'll see. But he will miss the first 6 games of the season due to eligibility suspensions because of when he enrolled or something. I don't know. All that's a little tricky for me. But yeah, I thought that was super interesting.
Can I sidetrack us for a second here?
Mm-hmm.
You have it in bold with asterisks around it, so I feel like it's interesting. You just made me think of the missing the 6 games aspect. Did you guys ever know people in your sports that ever had that transfer where they went to a different high school and then came to your high school and then they had to forego either a season of eligibility or a few months of eligibility?
I didn't know anyone personally, but as I'm in my 302 class, I've interviewed some athletes who have had to sit because they're transferred. One of the kids who plays for the Santan Charter football team, shout out, he transferred from Chandler Prep and had to sit out the first 6 weeks of the season last year. So he didn't get to play that much. So yeah, I have heard of it. Nowhere personally. I went to a super small 2A school in Washington in the middle of nowhere. So we didn't have any athletes transfer to us or anything, but yeah.
Yeah, I also don't know anybody personally, but similar when I was covering Saguaro, they're a huge high school sports, I was going to say complex, attraction here.
Huge program.
Yeah, program. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. Their football, their baseball, etc. is huge. And I know there were several players there that had to sit out because they would just go to Saguaro to play. Yep. And it's just again, reiterates that whole, it's just so crazy to me how high school sports can be so big that you move, literally your family moves to be in a district or in whatever. And I had heard several stories of that, and it just blows my mind every time because you're changing your entire life for a high school, a public high school.
Yeah,
might I add.
No, I know. It's anything to get those eyes, right? If you think you're good enough and you're this crazy football player and you're really good, but you play for those tiny, small schools in the middle of nowhere, why wouldn't you want to transfer to a school like Saguaro or Notre Dame or someplace like that where they have huge, historically good athletic programs? So, yeah. But that is Jack Beck for this week. I just thought it was interesting because it brings up a lot of conversation about NIL and just earning money off of college athletics and the new NCAA rule change. So, yeah, but you want to take it over, Noah?
Yeah, we'll go from icing on the cake on the ice to a guy who likes ice cream. It's 15-year-old Nicholas Cole Denton. He's from Pascagoula, Mississippi. Race fans in the Southeast have heard his name. They've seen the Mellow Yellow inspired number 46 legend before, and we will certainly be hearing more from this star of legend car competition down the road. This was a newer name that I actually hadn't heard until this August, and I'm glad I did because I've had my eyes on him as he has checked box after box after box. Likening his Days of Thunder nickname, Cole Trickle, that's where he gets the inspiration. I don't know if you guys have ever watched Days of Thunder, but it's an iconic classic racing movie, but akin to Cole Trickle. He's making noise out here on the West Coast now, guys. He started in go-karts at 4 years old. I can't even imagine racing at 4 years old. or doing like sports at 4 years old, let alone racing. But Cole quickly climbed the ladder. 4 years after his first go-kart race, he jumped over to the Bandoleros and would go on to win 12 championships in 2022, including the INEX National Bandolero Championship. That season included 40 wins across 62 races. He only finished outside the podium 3 times. Pretty stout season. In 2024, Cole finished second in the Young Lion National Legend Points behind a driver we've actually spotlighted on here before, Keelan Harvick. Outside the car, Cole stays connected to the track as much as he possibly can. He sang the national anthem. He's called races live from the booth. He's actually even worked as a spotter, so he's doing everything he can. Plus, he loves to spend time on iRacing and his flight simulator. This is an interesting little nugget I dug up while I was trying to learn more about Cole. Was he said, NASCAR is obviously a big goal of mine, but I love flying, and I want to fly. And he actually just turned 15, and what was his surprise? Well, he got to go flying. That's pretty darn cool. Other fun facts: he enjoys ice cream. It's his favorite dessert, and his favorite track, Cordele Motor Speedway. That's a pretty good one. When asked about the most challenging part of racing, Denton offered a pretty unique answer. Denton said, quote, "I think it's just living far away from the track is the most challenging thing, because we're about 7 hours from the closest track. So that's the most challenging part for us, is having to drive all the way out here. We're in Mississippi, and there's not a lot of racing where we're at." And I always thought that was, interesting, because you typically think of the East Coast, the Southeast, as having this really rich, racing scene, and that's not always the case. And so for a driver like Denton, with as much talent as he has, we'll hear in a second, jumping over to Thursday Night Thunder at Atlanta Motor Speedway, now rebranded to Echo Park Speedway. Before his 15th birthday, Cole bagged back-to-back Thursday Night Thunder titles, despite moving up a division from the Young Lions to the semi-pro field. And just, guys, this is a look at his stats from the summer. 5 main event wins of the 10 races he entered, no finishes outside the top 5, and he won the final 3 features, all while becoming the youngest driver to do so. What are you guys thinking so far as I'm going through these stats?
I feel like just like a lot of the kids and the athletes we talk about, he's 15. He's only 15, right?
Yeah, just turned 15.
And like freshly 15, and he already has all these crazy cool accolades, winning races at 15, championships at 15. I just think that's insane. And it's like literally every sport that we've covered, we'd have like this 14, 15, 16-year-old who's like tearing it up in whatever junior league, or not even, like he's just racing cars. So it's just crazy.
Yeah, it makes me contemplate what I'm doing with my life. Just kidding. But I definitely think I think the part you were talking about was cool, is that he was also like in the broadcast booth. Also, obviously, like the plane part is cool, but just like last week when you were talking about, I think how she would work, maybe that was not last week, but she would work on the mechanics, or her grandma and her aunt would work on the mechanics of the cars. And like this week, how, he's also in the broadcast booth. Just these racers that are obviously talented because they're, this involved at such a young age, but they're also multifaceted in that they understand, the mechanics of the car. They understand, being able to broadcast and understand the sport fully. It's just super cool to see such well-rounded, very, very, very young racers.
Yeah.
I think, to me, the most impressive part, and the thing that actually put him on my radar, was his exploits on the West Coast. He took a trip out to Madera Speedway, home of the 5150 Junior Late Model Division. He'd made that journey down with Nake Motorsports. Denton was making his stock car debut. So I've showed you guys the Legends. They're these little single-seaters. They're small. Bandoleros, again, single-seaters, small. They're quick, but nowhere like driving a full-bodied stock car with all that horsepower. It didn't matter. It didn't matter, because he beat out series regular James Hamlin to win the 70-lap event. I watched the footage. I watched the tapes. I checked it. You would not know this guy had never wheeled one of these cars before. He was on the bottom. He could run the top. He was running smooth. He just had that car dialed in. He then went to hop aboard that same number 88 machine for another 80 laps in the Pro Late Model feature against the drivers higher in class, finished 5th. And that was in late August. He took an additional trip back to the Golden State, riding again with the NAIC program, competing at Kevin Harvick's Kern Raceway, putting up a pair of top 5 finishes in the 240 lap features. These eyes are now set on a Cars Tour West debut at Kern on Saturday, November 15th. Watch out, guys. This is a guy who a few months ago was a star of the Legends Series. Now he's really, really making some hay on the late model sign, not just on the East Coast. Now he's really tearing it up here on the West Coast.
Yeah.
You know.
All right.
Okay, well, that being said, now transitioning into who's on deck. So far, I've only talked about baseball players, so I figured it was time to bring up a softball player, and that would be Erin Coffel, I think is how you say her last name. She was the very first MVP of the Athletes Unlimited Softball League. They had their inaugural season this past year. And for those who don't know, Athletes Unlimited is a sort of like new league that has its own point system and sort of have teams with captains rather than having, different divisions and leagues. Since it is so small, it has basketball, volleyball, softball, and I think there may be other sports, but I don't remember. It initially started as a touring league, but now they have established teams in established cities and contracts with ESPN, which it's been really exciting to watch it grow, especially as somebody who grew up playing softball, watching, quote unquote, the first professional softball league take wind has been really exciting. And so they had their first inaugural season this year, obviously, and Erin Coffel received the first ever MVP award, which is super cool. Obviously, the highest individual honor in the league. And in the AUSL, which is what the Athletes Unlimited Softball League for short, it's voted on by the AUSL Player Executive Committee, advisors, general managers, head coaches, and the broadcast team. The fan votes were also factored into the totals, and she received the award prior to one of the first game of the AUSL Championship. She's an infielder on the Bandits, which I didn't know. I'm not familiar with all of the teams. The Bandits are based in Rosemont, Illinois. She also won the league's Hitter of the Year award and guided the Bandits to a 15-9 record and a second-place finish in the regular season. She's a former University of Kentucky star, and in her inaugural season, she had 4 triples, 28 runs, and batted. Oh, she also, this was funny, had the season or the league high hit by pitch, not necessarily something that you'd want to have. It seems quite painful, but she had the league high hit by pitch, with getting hit by pitches 13 separate times.
Ooh, unlucky.
throughout this season. So, like Noah said, very unlucky. She also had a .410 batting average with an .869 slugging percentage and a .566 on-base percentage. And she opened the season by reaching base safely in 19 consecutive games, and they had a 15-9 record, so that's basically essentially every single game. And the AUSL commissioner said about Erin Coffel delivered an exceptional season that truly set the standard in our inaugural year. Her power at the plate, consistency on the field, and relentless competitiveness made her a force in every game she played. Most importantly, she elevated everyone around her and played in a vital role, helping propel the Bandits to compete for the AUSL Championship. We're proud to recognize her as her first ever AUSL MVP. And at 23 years old, she has lots of awards under her belt already. Obviously, the AUSL MVP in 2025 and Hitter of the Year. In college, she was second-team All-American, third-team All-American for the SEC. And in her freshman year, she was also the first-team All-American, the first freshman team All-American. In her last year of high school, working back, her senior year was canceled due to COVID, so her junior year of high school, she had a .691 average, 19 home runs, 52 runs batted in, and a .760 on-base percentage, and she led her high school to a state championship. She was named the Indiana Gatorade Player of the Year, and although her senior year was canceled and it was only, sort of a season for a few weeks, she was still named the Indiana Gatorade Player of the Year for the second year in a row. She obviously, like I said earlier, attended the University of Kentucky, and in her senior year, she appeared in 55 games and hit .319 with 46 hits, 12 doubles, 13 home runs, and 33 RBIs. She's Kentucky's all-time leader in home runs, RBIs, and walks, and in January she was drafted to the AUSL and was the 24th pick overall, and she's a very young talent and obvious to, be the face of this developing league. Obviously, it was only the inaugural season, and I feel like they made lots of headlines with how they drafted the players going into the college softball games, the commissioner going to the college softball games and like handing the players a golden ticket and inviting them to her league. I feel like they made lots of headlines, so I'm excited to see where this league goes and bring up more players as the second season progresses and see how Erin does in her second year.
Yeah. I mean, I've said it all the time. I love when we highlight female athletes. So, especially in like leagues like the women's softball league that's like so new and like women haven't really had that before. So, yeah, I just love it.
Well, and you brought up the Athletes Unlimited League, and I remember talking about this last year as it was beginning to grow and beginning to develop. So I'm glad that we're following up with an athlete like Erin, and it is, like you said, just so cool to see, the story of athletes who had their senior years messed up by COVID to have that rebound as well, and just to see that even though the season was again so short, I don't know, there was maybe like we had 3 weeks of March. If we go back to 2020, so maybe 6 games you would have had in the season, and you still win Gatorade Player of the Year. That's pretty incredible. But I think we're pushing time. Any final thoughts?
Not from me. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening today to today's edition of the Scountin Session. My name is Jordan Talley alongside
Ella Walter Sanchez
and Noah Reed.
As always, thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.